Hola a todos, welcome back to MetaFit MetaMind podcast, a podcast in which speakers, leaders, entrepreneurs, and influencers come in and share their journey on how they've gotten to this place in their life while also normalizing those conversations between mental and physical health and wellness. I am Carla Rodriguez, your coach and trainer of NLP and host of this podcast, and I created this space to remind you to raise your voice and share your story. And as your guide, I am here to create a pathway to let go of all those limiting chains behind and use this platform to empower and create awareness, purpose, and expansion in your life. You can follow us on Instagram at MetaFit MetaMind Podcast, or you can follow me at Coach Carlita. Please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Hey everyone, thanks for coming back to another episode. I don't have too many updates today since I just published an episode just last week. Hopefully you've been listening to it, but I do want to remind you about the Power Summit with Women Without Limits movement happening this September 27th here in Austin, Texas. Stay tuned for more details because it's going to be really exciting for that. I'm excited about it. It's my first one in person in a long time. So yeah. Also, I've been diving into podcast editing for others, for other podcasters, and it's honestly been so fulfilling. So if you or someone you know needs an editor, keep me in mind because I'm looking for a couple more clients. Now, on a personal note, I've been getting back into my health journey, which feels great, and just getting stronger, getting fitter, I guess. My weight isn't, where I want it to be yet. We're almost 2 years in of being a mom, and, I'm not one that just jumps into things like other people. It's not from one day to the next. I'm just very honest about this. And so one of the things for me that I struggled with was, of course, my nutrition. And part of that is also my sleep. And so I've been at this plateau with my weight, but it's been just great to go back and be consistent and having the coaches push me. So keep me motivated. And if you want to be part of an accountability group with me, let me know. I'm part of another accountability group and it helps a lot. So let me know. So the last thing is that we're almost at episode 100. One more episode, yo. So, get ready to celebrate me. It's going to be really exciting. And so, yeah. So let's get into today's episode. I had the chance to sit down with the brilliant and insightful man, Jim Rojas Taylor, former Marine, actor, creative mind, and the author of All Your Best Selves. This conversation was wild in the most enlightening way. We talked about how he, as a kid, created suits and bubbles, these inner versions of himself to navigating the world, and how that evolved into his acting philosophy, I should say, emotional intelligence practices, right? And his entire way of life. Get deep into presence, identity, confidence, and what it means to live with intention. So if you're curious about personal growth, mental and emotional mastery, or how to show up for yourself in every room you walk into, you're going to want to listen deeply to this one. So let's get into it. Thank you so much for being here at MetaFit MetaMind podcast. I'm excited to be back for another episode with another amazing, amazing person who I met. It's been like a month already at this point because we had to reschedule. So I am so grateful to have Jim here. Thank you so much for being here, Jim.
Absolutely, Carlos. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. So the first thing that I'd like to ask you for whoever's watching or listening to this is, who is Jim?
That's a really complicated answer. And it goes back to the beginning. All of this goes back to the beginning when I was 4 years old. I was a Jersey boy, lived in Jersey. My parents took me to midnight mass. And for whatever reason, the concept of eternity just cracked when the priest spoke those words. And I realized if there isn't an end, there's not a middle. If there's not a middle, that means it's only the perpetual beginning. And if it's the perpetual beginning, that means like 10,000 eons from now, I'm still going to exist. Even though I didn't know the scope of time, I understood, what am I going to do with forever once I've done everything many times over? So boredom freaked me out. And then what I did, I'd regressed into my mind and I started treating my mind instinctively like it was a computer. I started creating programs for myself, and my first two were my suits and bubbles. My suits were just different versions of myself. So every time I met someone, I would actively listen to them, and I would try to take everything I could about them mentally and emotionally and recreate them as me inside myself. So it would create a new version of me, and those were my suits. My
Yeah.
bubbles were like the holodeck in the Star Trek universe. They could be anytime, any place, anywhere. And what I didn't realize at the time, what I essentially did was create a proving grounds for myself. So
Mm-hmm.
anytime I went into a situation, I played it out inside my head multiple different ways before I did it for real.
Yeah.
Um, and I kind of carried on. That was the way I lived. That was my lifestyle. And I didn't realize at the time it was different from anyone else because it never occurred to me to think that way. As I progressed on, I went into high school, and that was the first time I got into contact with theater. I did theater one for 6 weeks, and I got kicked out and sent to ROTC. And I feel like that kind of got me into the Marine Corps, though. ROTC, it helped. Um, I did 5.5 or 5 years active, one reserve in the Marines.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When I
Well,
got out,
thank you for serving.
absolutely, absolutely. Actually, before high school and all that, around 10 years old, my parents
Mm-hmm.
moved us from New Jersey to Alabama. So when I
Mm-hmm.
enlisted, I was in Alabama at the time. So I
Gotcha.
enlisted, and then I came back to Alabama, North Alabama, after my time in the Corps. And then I got it was like in my early 20s, and I got a job at Lone Star Steakhouse as a server. And I remember there was this one night where we were rolling silverware, and I was a dumb honorary Marine. And there was this girl over there rolling silverware, and she was talking about how hard her voice lessons were. And I remember
Mm-hmm.
just being a ball break. I'm like, come on, voice lessons? I'm a Marine. When
Mm-hmm.
we talk to you about hard?
Yeah.
And then she just snapped up, and she's like, I bet you couldn't do 3 weeks, soldier boy. And I was kind of taken back by her strength, in
Yeah.
that moment because
Yeah.
she was serious. Like I touched a nerve. And I was like, all right, cool. Yeah, I'm going to do this. So
I
I'm
mean,
like, I'm
you
going to do
got a
six
Marine
weeks. Just
Corps confidence over here.
Oh man, yeah. So
Yeah.
I did that. I went to Huntsville and I found me a voice coach. And after the first lesson, I forgot about the dare because I was just so fascinated by how he handled me, how he made me sound. I mean, his
Mm-hmm.
ability to just do things with me, with my vocal, and teaching me stuff. And he got me started. He put me into a chorus. Like I remember the first thing he said was, "Have you heard of Jesus Christ Superstar?" And I was like, "Yeah, but never heard him called Superstar." And he kind of chuckled at that because it was a famous Broadway opera in the '70s, Jesus Christ
Mm-hmm.
Superstar. And it was coming up a year from that point. It was 2003. It was playing in 2004. And he's like, "I want you to audition for Judas." And I'm like, "All right, cool." And I didn't really think much about it, but then he put me in a chorus. Then when I was in that chorus, there was doing a play called Pocahontas, and like 4 or 5 dudes fell out of the role Thundercloud, and they came up to me 2 weeks before opening night, like, "Will you please play this role?" There's only one spoken line, one sung line, and I was hesitant at first, but I was like, they talked me into it. But after that, it just got easier and easier. I just started auditioning. I got about 30 credits in my first 2 years here in North Alabama. Then I moved to New York. I got about good 20 credits up there. Then I wrote, produced, and performed my own play. Uh, After the significance of that is from
Yeah.
the moment I wrote the first line to when we had closing night, only 5 months had passed. And all the people around me, the professionals rather, they were blown away. They're like, "How did you do that? So you don't know what you're
Yeah.
doing." It's like, how did that happen? And that's like the gift was I didn't know I couldn't. I was just focused on the next task and the next task, and I kept going. But that endeavor got me an audition for my first principal role in a SAG film called Hunger. And that film had a real poignant moment in that one too. There was a scene we were doing with me and Lyndon Ashby. He's a prominent actor, really good
Mm-hmm.
actor, but the camera was on him, not on me.
Yeah.
So they were doing his scene, and then when they yelled cut, he reached over and shook my hand like I pulled his kid out of a fire, and I couldn't understand what happened at the time. What had happened was, and it took me like about 6 weeks to figure it out, is when you're acting, you're giving to your scene partner to make them have a better performance. So you give to each other. If I'm just saying my line's flat, you can't draw as much out of it. And even though I wasn't, yeah, so even though I wasn't in character, what happened was I was still present in the moment because of my lifestyle. So I was giving to him. And that moment is what made me realize what I'd stumbled onto, that my suits were just like characters and my bubbles were like Stanislavski's magic if. So from there, I trying to push ahead with the idea. Around 2020, I wrote a book about it called All Your Best Selves. And it's basically kind of how I live my life because I live under that principle of like, how people say, be your best self? I don't like that because it's like there's no version of you. It doesn't matter how much you add that will ever be the best fit for every circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
So what I've done with my suits is I created a whole wardrobe of myself. So now when a situation arises, I get to pick the best version of me to fit that circumstances. So I have effect
I
over
love
myself.
that.
Yeah, I can change myself. I can't always
Hmm.
change the circumstances.
Yeah.
So because I've built them all, now I have access to them. And it's kind of like that, the multiple version or multiple universes where
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The multiverse.
yeah, it's like
Yeah,
there's a
we can talk about that all day over here.
what
But
I'm
yeah, that
saying.
makes sense. That makes
What I
sense.
what I essentially done is pulled all those versions and put them in my head, just in the
Hmm.
imaginative. So instead of having them out in the ether somewhere, they're all in here now.
Yeah.
And then from there, I got to the podcast. And like I just started podcasting, being a guest
Yeah.
February. Yeah, yeah, brand new,
Hmm.
February 6th. But since February 6th, this is my 27th podcast. So I've been crushing it. Yeah, doing it. But
Yes.
it's like now, but it wasn't until I was doing it. Like I got the idea in 2008, but it wasn't until I was podcasting because it was the first time I got to talk about it. I got to tell it to people and they're just kind of, yeah, whatever. But in these interviews, it's that engagement back and
Hmm.
forth. So because of that, that's when I realized what I really have is a systemic form of mental and emotional literacy. That's what I'm peddling. And that's, to me, that transformed everything. And that's kind of where I'm at now.
Yeah, that's amazing. And there's so many questions that are like coming up for me right now, especially because, you were in a class in high school for theater, yet you were kicked out, you took a different route, and here you are, right? Kind of full circle where you are in that space, in that arena. But with, I would say, my husband is a Marine Corps vet as well. And so I hear the mentality of a Marine all the time, and the language and all of these things, my brother-in-law too, right? And so I really respect it. And I think just from my perspective, just based on what I know in this world, that what I'm taking is that, and it's almost a compliment too, I think, is that you were able to do that in 5 months because I think of that also Marine
Yeah.
mentality. And also, I don't know, right? I had never lived it, but what I sense is that in part, like the Marines, they kind of teach you to not doubt yourself.
Yeah. Well,
Like
that
you
too.
have
Yeah.
to be present. There's no time for that doubt, which I think since you've been four, and correct me if I'm wrong, you've always had it, and this was just another factor in that.
Yeah. Well, I kind of see it like this too.
Mm-hmm.
It's like in the theater world, we have stage fright. If you
Yeah.
translate it into the real world, it's called insecurity. It's the same thing. When you have stage fright, you're insecure on stage because you don't know
Mm-hmm.
your beats, you don't know the moments, you don't know the lines, you haven't done the
Yeah.
work, you haven't done the blocking, you haven't filled all that stuff out. In life, if we work on our character, who we are, we can fill those voids so we don't have those insecurities. And that's really what I did. I started filling myself in as a child. So now no one can intimidate me and no one can make me feel insecure because I've answered all the questions. And that's kind of what you have to do. When you do that, then that's where the security comes from. Because when somebody asks you something, I'm not like, well, I don't know. I've never asked myself that. No, I'm like, oh, yeah, I answered that. Got this answer, but it goes over here and that connects to this, yada, yada. Because you know who you are. So I'm so foundationally grounded in myself that I don't care who the person is. Can't nobody make me feel insecure. I've never had
Mm-hmm.
anyone make me feel insecure about myself or
That's
intimidate me. I've
amazing.
just been okay.
Yeah. And I think a
But
lot of
again,
us
it's
can
I
can
did the
really
work.
take that as a lesson from you, is like nobody can make me feel this way. I can make me feel this way if I choose to. And I think
Uh-huh.
that's something that I try to teach my clients and my students, is it's that self-responsibility. And so, is there anything that you have to say about that self-responsibility?
It's what's I say like this. It's the difference between when people say I got to find myself. I'm like that's the wrong thing. Look in the mirror if you want to find yourself. You got to
Yeah.
build yourself. That's what you
Mhm.
need to do. I mean, who cares where you are? I mean, it doesn't matter where you are in life. You can always build from that point. So if you just accept the fact that you are where you are and start building there, now you're growing, and that's what you need
Mhm.
to do. But that's where the discipline comes in. Like
Yeah.
this is work. It's not hard work. But
Yeah.
again, it's easier to do nothing, and most people like to do easy.
For
That's the fight.
sure.
Yeah, that's what
You
you're
definitely
fighting.
did not choose easy.
No, no, one can too. It's like I feel like it should be because this is the next level for humanity. Because if you consider this, when we gave humanity written literacy in the form of
Mhm.
reading and writing, changed the world. When we
Yes.
gave humanity numerical literacy in the form of mathematics, changed the world. Why wouldn't it change the world if we gave them a systemic way to learn mental and emotional literacy?
Yes.
what I mean is like giving language to stuff. Like,
Mm-hmm.
consider this.
Mm-hmm.
When, as an actor, what we do to break down a moment, we use what's called the Stanislavski system. It's a system of 7 questions. And the purpose of it,
Stanislavski
yeah,
system.
his name is it's from a gentleman from the 1900s called Konstantin Stanislavski. He's a Russian
Okay.
gentleman. But he created this system, and it's just like I said, rudimentary 7 questions, but it's dissecting a moment. So I can take apart a moment to ground my character in the moment by answering these questions. And in life, this will ground you, your character, in the moment. And I'll add this onto it. It's like this: like if you have a submarine underwater, right? It can't see anything. It has no idea what's going on outside of it. So it has to rely on sonar. It'll send out a ping, and that ping will bounce off to things. It'll let it know where a submarine is, where the ground is, where a whale is, where the ships on the surface are. Well, that's what the Stanislavski system. It's a way to get situational awareness in the moment. All right. Now here they are, 7 questions. Number one, who am I? This is the moment in relation to you. Number two, where am I? This is the moment in relation to the environment you're in. Number three, when is it? This is the moment in relation to time. Number four, what do I want? This is the moment in relation to purpose. Number five, why do I want it? This is the moment in relation to desire. Number six, how do I get it? This is the moment in relation to action. And number seven, what's in my way? This is the moment in relation to obstacles. If you send these 7 questions out, when these answers comes back, and now you are in a better position to make a choice because you have answers. Most people walk into situations, don't have a clue what's going on. They're just
Mm-hmm.
reacting. This is being proactive. This is sending out sending out questions to bring back information for you. And with that information, now you're better armed. So that's what I'm saying is like again, giving literacy to stuff. Have you ever heard of the it factor?
Yes.
Can you describe it?
No.
Let me
Not specifically. I think it really depends on where I'm at and
let me
like
give
what
you
that
this.
it factor or energy that I need to have.
Tell me what you think. Hold up.
Okay.
All right, I am saying I can pick 5 skills,
Mm-hmm.
5 learnable skills. If you put these, and I'm not saying this is absolute, I'm just saying if you take these 5 particular skills, put them together, you will exude the it factor from
Okay.
people looking on the outside. You can add and take away from those lists, but you got to be careful with it. All right. Number one, active listening. This is listening to understand, to hear the other person, not just to reply. You're taking in what the other person's saying. And when you do that, people recognize it and it makes them more endearing to you because they
Mm-hmm.
understand that this person's taking me seriously. They're not just kind of, whatever, how yada, yada. You're actively listening to them. Number two is charm. Sometimes we call it magnetism or charisma, but it's what draws people to you. It's just that energy that makes people feel happy when they're around you.
Mm.
Number four is intensity. It's the ability to have like that force of presence. Whatever you do, you bring it hard. You don't have to
Mm.
dominate, but you're not, when you speak, you're not resisted.
Yeah.
It's kind of like being passionate.
Yes.
When people say someone's passionate, that's just the ability to control your emotions and to choose which one you want to use because emotions are just flavored energy. That's the way I see them.
Ew.
Yeah, it's just
I've never
flavored.
thought about it that way.
Yeah, that's how I interact with them.
Yeah.
It's energy that I let out, but what flavor am I letting out?
Mm-hmm.
On this list, number four is generosity. That's when you're so self-confident, you're so full of yourself in a good way that you're looking for ways to give to others in the moment, to bring them in, to make the moment richer
Mm-hmm.
for them. And number six is poise. And it's just kind of like that nonverbal use of your body where you stand, how you stand and whatnot. Now, like I said, if we break these 5 things down, if we took the it factor, break it down to 5 things, now it's teachable.
Yes.
Now, if we can teach this to people, how how effective would it be for like marketing, for sales, for presentations to turn the it factor on and off? Because that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. That's what we do as actors. We use real emotions in imaginary circumstances. We build real working mindsets for use on the stage. But the rub is, we don't have a mind and emotions for the stage and one for real life. What essentially happened back 100 years ago when these
Mm-hmm.
acting masters created these tools and techniques, they created the instruments to build to perfect their art. But you have to appreciate what their art was. What their art was. If you look at like artists, metal workers work with metal, glass workers work with glass. Musicians with instruments and composition. An actor works with the human mind and emotions. The tools that they build were to shape the human mind and emotions. People overlook it because everybody thinks acting is what it was for the first 2,100 years. If you look at the first 2,500 or the 2,500 years of Western acting from the Greeks here, the first 2,100 years was like representation, masking, pretend. The 300 years that followed was like the Victorian Shakespearean area where it moved to natural realism. But it was 1900 when Konstantin Stanislavski changed the game. He made it philosophical. Acting, honestly, is not the right word. We don't act anymore. We be. We become. It's about a state of being, you know?
Yeah.
It's living truthfully in imaginary circumstances. That's the goal. If you're not doing that, you're not doing the work right. So what I'm saying is we don't have a mind and emotions for the stage and a mind and emotions for life. So these tools, one for one, work for life and for the stage. We just need to take them out of act. Well, not out, but just copy them and put them in education alongside.
Like implement them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a new way to teach because consider this. We send every generation through adolescence. Why aren't we teaching them emotional regulation in elementary school?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so they can control their emotions better.
Yeah, yeah.
And,
right
and
now I'm going through that, you know, with my 12-year-old stepson where he's sixth grader and he's figuring out those emotions and all these new things and the hormones, you know, going through puberty and stuff. And there's a lot of times when he's not in the place where he wants to be, or there's just something that happens and he'll shut out. And so, you know, I'm working on practicing that with him because, you know, I don't have control over it right now at school, but, you know, one of the teachers seems to be, like knowledgeable actually in emotional intelligence, and he'll give him his space. If he tries to interact with him, he doesn't feel energy back from the kid. He's like, all right, I'm going to give you some space. I'll come back and check in later. Right. And so I don't think that used to be done when I was in school, where it's like, why aren't you talking to me? Oh, you have an attitude? Go straight to the office, you know? And like, we didn't know what the heck was happening. So I think too, just like you, I grew up with somewhat of emotional intelligence, being like a mediator unfortunately, between my parents. But also, weirdly enough, I was part of the peacemakers in elementary school. And so we would do conflict resolution, which is hilarious to me. And it's so interesting how all this conflict that happens and how just asking those right questions, the it factor, listening, responding based on what you heard. What is their body language like right now? Are they in a place of, are you open to sharing or are you not yet? All right, let's come back to this. And I think this is definitely something that does need to get taught because it would avoid so much conflict, first of all.
Absolutely. It's like when you're talking about behavior, that's what, or body language, that's what the Meisner technique does. That's a different technique, but the whole purpose is to read behavior. And to me, that's important. And the difference between it's two different schools as well. Stanislavski is what's referred to as inside-out acting. You start and build the character from the inside, and you work out. Meisner's outside in. You start from the outside and build inward. With Meisner, you're looking for outside stimuli. Like his exercises are repetition. So essentially, like if you and I were doing the exercise, I would be like, you have a blue and red checkered shirt, and you would say, I have a blue and red checkered shirt, and we would say this back and forth. The point is to take your focus off the words. Don't focus on the words. Focus on the behavior. Focus on the outward stimuli. The next exercise from that would be a repetition with objective changes. And that would be like, you have a checkered shirt, I have a checkered shirt, and you yawn. I'm like, you yawned, I yawned. You yawned, I yawned. Because now we're making observations. And the next level for that is subjective. So if we were back, you had the checkered shirt, I have the checkered shirt, you yawn. I would be like, am I boring you? And then you would be like, are you boring me? Because now I'm making a subjective choice when I make a comment. So, and again, it's
that's so cool. That's such a cool practice to like really think about too.
Yeah. But again, because like I said, we're taught to focus on what other people say so we can reply, not to listen, not to understand, not to take them in. If we take the time to take the other person in, they become a part of us. We become connected to them. And now that helps us grow empathy. Because that's another thing too. This is about ultimate empathy. This is how you can learn to be any other person. If you can learn to be any other person, you can now empathize with them.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, part of this podcast, and I think you pretty much have answered most of my questions that I normally ask here. So cool. Don't need to like intentionally ask them. But in this process, because you've always been, or I would say you've always had like this emotional intelligence, this like knowing of these parts of you, or this that's all within the one person. How do you continue to practice this emotional, this physical intelligence, and correlating with the emotional, physical, spiritual, all the other, health? How does that play out in your life? Because in the acting world, like for that, just for the name of the namesake, you essentially are one with that character. But how does coming out of that character, what do you do for yourself to continue to grow that intelligence?
Well, first of all, again, this is like I said, acting changes. It's not a character; it's a different version of me.
A different version. Okay.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
that's what we've evolved to.
Yeah.
Goal now is not to become a character, it's to find that character in you. Who is that
Mm.
character in me? Like
Yeah.
if I was, when I become that person, who
Yeah.
am I as that character? So
Yeah.
they're just joining there.
Yeah.
So now it is, now if I do the work correctly, it's not a character anymore, it's just a different version of me. And it's added on, because people ask me that, like, well, if you have all these different versions, which one's you? And I'm like, no, I'm the sum total of all of them.
Yeah.
Every one of them that I add, I become more, because it's allowing me to grow into something more than I was before.
Yeah.
And it's because it's the difference between masking, where a lot of people put on, and you'll say people put on an act. Yeah, that's what it is. It's an act. For me, it's not. I'm being. Because people who treat it like the first 2,100 years are the people who act. They're putting on a mask. People do the work to understand where you exist in that space. Now you're becoming that. Now it's a part.
Yeah.
You've grown as a human being. And that's what I'm saying is, like, we can, because if you think about it, according to science, the human brain is the most powerful supercomputer known to mankind. We have almost 9 billion of the most powerful supercomputers known to mankind, each one with an emotional power core on a planet with a global technical infrastructure. Why haven't we colonized the solar system yet? We should be
Mm-hmm.
further. And the reason I believe is because what's the operating system for that supercomputer? What's the Windows 11? What's the iOS? What's the Linux Red Hat? That's what I'm saying these tools and techniques are. They're the basic operating system that allows the layman to interface their mind and emotions in a way they never have before.
Yeah.
Because
What are
right
we
now,
choosing to download and upload?
yeah, because right now it's like writing line code. That's what the first 12 years of our life is in elementary school, junior high, high school. It's programming. You're programming a basic human model. Well, if you learn these tools and techniques, now you can write your own code. You don't have to be the model that the government said you need to be off the line. Now you can reinvent yourself into anything.
We're going from floppy disk to USB to nano. Yeah, that's so cool to like really think about it. And if I really do think about this, it's like I've heard people on TV or interviews. I think you even say it's like this version. And so like I think about like if I remember one of the movies that I have enjoyed watching for a long time, 101 Dalmatians, right? And I never imagined myself playing Cruella de Vil, like if I were to play that. But then I'm like, that version of Cruella, how would that version of Carla, version be like? What would she be saying? How would she be standing? Like, first of all, how fun would that be? But just like, what would that essence be is what I think. And so it's like, what essence do you need to bring to not play that character, but become that version of that you? And one thing I've heard too is like, for our confidence or for the success or whatever, it's like I've heard the saying of be, do, and have. So would you say that you be that version, you do that version, and you have the energy of that version? I'm not even going to say actor or character anymore.
I mean, I guess that can work,
Mm-hmm.
because I mean, it's about perspective, the way you look
Mm-hmm.
at it. But
Yeah.
all of those bits and pieces, yeah, you become them, you have them, you
Mm-hmm.
are them. This is finding yourself in that space. There's actually a field called dark psychology,
I've heard of
where
it. Yes.
yeah, where it goes to the dark side of the
It's
human
a little
mind.
like,
Mhm. And that's kind of, and you got to appreciate, because think about it.
mm-hmm.
There's actors who play serial killers, who play murderers, And when you
Yeah.
take on a role like that, you have to become a serial killer within the confines of the stage.
Yes.
But you have to go to that place, find that person, part of yourself, where it would take you to the point where I would take a knife and stab someone 30 times. And it's hard, but it's also incredibly enlightening about yourself. And
Yeah.
but things like that, you also take baby steps. You don't want to jump
Of
right
course.
into brutal murder.
Yeah.
Just take
Yeah.
little
You gotta
because
work on your own emotional intelligence first before I think you
yeah,
can get into that. And I just
yeah,
saw like a clip online yesterday actually, how like was it Heath Ledger's dad? He shared his the journal that he had to play the Joker, and
mhm,
I was like, oh shoot, like that's some crazy shit in there,
yeah.
But he had to get in that mindset. But I wonder too, because but obviously amazing actor, no longer here, is what was his self-care, his mindfulness, his emotional intelligence, where was that at for him as well? Because that could be some
Everything
heavy stuff.
read extensively on it, and from everything I've read from the people who were actually there on set
Mm-hmm.
with it day to day, they
Mm-hmm.
say it wasn't the Joker.
No.
It's the same thing. It got Elvis. It
Yeah.
was the drugs, and not. I'm not talking about illegal drugs. Well, I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
they
yeah,
were
yeah.
legal, but uppers and downers. Like Elvis, he had to be up. Michael Jackson, up, down. I have a schedule to got to keep. I got to do this, that, and it's the industry. It
Yeah.
puts so much pressure, and then he's such a good working actor that he's putting too much on himself,
Yeah.
and that's what they think. It was just he was the upper
Yeah.
whatever he was
It
uppers and
was
downs.
just a mix of all of that,
Yeah, it's
which
just
still messes with your emotions and your mindset and
but he was like I said, he
your
was
body,
solid.
your health.
Everybody on set with him said when he got because he wasn't a method actor, he wasn't in Joker all the time. He
Yeah.
stepped in and out. For
Yeah.
one, he was able to step in and out. But when he stepped out, he was always happy and jovial. And two, he did a movie afterwards. Well, he died actually doing the Imaginarium, Dr. Farnassus, I think it was. But it was a very lighthearted film.
Yeah.
So it's like people think that it was the Joker that got him. No, it wasn't that. He was because he's a solid actor.
Yeah.
To
Oh, yeah.
yeah, to get
Definitely.
caught up in that is more of a rookie.
Got it. Yeah.
'Cause- and,
And
and
so,
it,
what do you do for your self care?
I'm not really a self care kind of guy.
I know you're a Marine. So, what do
Yeah,
you do for yourself that you think
honestly,
helps you continue this confidence and this, version of you that continues to just, develop into this next version of you?
well, it's the routine. Like I said, with the Stanislavski system, it's not 7 questions for me. It's a lot more questions, but it's gotten to the point where it's instantaneous. It's kind of like think about this. The first time you drove a car, it was kind of hokey, right?
Oh,
You were
yeah.
running, it took you, it was just clunky,
Yeah, this 12-year-old girl, like very short in a car in LA.
right?
Yeah, not the best idea for someone to teach a 12-year-old then.
Have you ever had that experience where you drove from one place to another, but you don't remember the drive?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
That's a phenomenon that happens with the human mind. It's like chunking. Basically, it'll take different aspects that you have to do when you go to the same routine over and over again. Your
Mm-hmm.
mind will take it, chunk it together, and just boom, make it happen instantaneously. Well, I've been asking these questions since I was 4 years old. So I have used basically that method on the way I think. So
Yeah.
it's sped up the way I think. So now when I walk into a room, it's just like ping, questions come back. It's because like when you first start, it's like, okay, who am I? All right, and I got to know who I am. Where am I? Okay, I know. Okay, when is it? Yeah, it's like that.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, it's just like, and it's answered. I'm good. It's like that's the best way I could describe it. It's just what I am.
You just have it,
Yeah,
it
well,
seems
because
like.
when I was a little one, I turned those things on. I didn't know
Yeah.
what I was doing, but
Did
like,
you ask these questions to your parents too?
oh yeah, nobody cared. Everybody just wanted me to shut up. It was
Really?
yeah. That's why I
You were
said
the
that's why.
curious one.
And
Mm-hmm.
because nobody wanted to be curious with me, it was so hard to learn.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could learn, but it was hard to grow in some ways because, like I said, I mean, I stumbled on this idea in 2008. Here it is, 2025, before I realized it's mental and emotional literacy. But it's
Yes.
only because I've never had anyone to talk to about it.
Yeah.
Nobody
Now you
cared.
got Carla to talk about this because I love this. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's interesting. So was it hard to like keep your interest in the because well with them, right? Because you had such a curious mind. And so did you ever find yourself in boredom because nobody would really satisfy that curiosity, or what did you do for yourself then with all these questions? Did you just kind of hold on to them until later?
Well, with the boredom, no, because boredom terrified me. That's what I was running from. So I kept myself busy with projects. Because my
Okay.
two birth gifts were curiosity and creativity. I was
Cool.
double fisting them. So
Yeah.
I was always able to use my creativity to keep me
Hmm.
from being bored.
Nice.
So it didn't matter if I was playing, I could just take junk, put it together, and make something to play with. It didn't matter. Or I could write. I always had outlets that I would give myself, and I would learn how to do these things. And I never cared about, and like my whole life, like, you ever see that movie Forrest Gump?
Yes.
I relate to that movie so much. Not because, I mean, I don't know, I've had some pretty crazy things happen to me, but it's the way people treated him. It was the disrespect, talking behind his back, laughing
Yeah.
at him. I've dealt with that my entire life because I'm a listener. So I always hear when people talk behind my back. I mean, they'll say nice stuff to my face, or sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. But it was like I was always more aware of what was going on than people thought. They thought they were just kind of, pulling the wool over my eyes. And it's like,
Yeah.
I'm
You're
just
gifted
learning.
with insight.
Yeah, but it was a double-edged sword because, I mean, it always hurt, but
Yeah.
I didn't stick around long enough to end the hurt because I was too busy moving. So it was just kind of me rushing through these different kind of traumas throughout my whole life, and I've always just outpaced them.
They can't take a hold to Jim.
Yeah, I
And so
tried.
let me ask you this. What are you excited for that's coming for you, for what you're doing? Like something that you want to share that people want to know about.
Right now I got a couple of, like I said, I can't sit still.
You're moving, moving, moving.
Yeah, so I have different projects that I cycle through because I can't just do one project. Because again, boredom. I'll get bored with the project. So I have like a web series that I'm about to. Well, I'm kind of started. I did the first two episodes, but I
Hmm.
still got to edit them together a little bit. But it's going to be a fantasy story told with miniature models. I'm also working on turning this idea into a course,
Hmm.
and like another project I have is a culture engine. I got the idea from like 1980s cartoons I used to watch, where if you had this ultimate bad force, like Imperial Force was trying to take over, and they had the super weapon, and the good force would steal the super weapon, change it, and use it against the Imperial Force. Well, I got this idea to reinvent the corporation in a certain way. So take the American corporation, but flip it on its head. Use an
Hmm.
education system to teach people how to learn how to run the company, how to build the company, how to be officers,
Hmm.
and then attach a program that the raises will be in their hands. So you incentivize them by learning by giving them little raises. And then, like I said, it's right now it's just designed to create leaders because I feel like that's what we need in this country. We don't have leaders. But I haven't really flushed it out all the way. It's just, like I said, I just call it a culture engine right now.
Yeah, you're gonna keep updating me, and we'll keep people up with this. And so let me ask you this, because there's so much that you've shared that is just like it's instant. Like how I totally was like, oh, that makes so much sense. Like I've never thought about it this way. What emotional flavor am I giving out, right? This push pull energy that you didn't say it, but that's what I understood from one of the lessons there. And so if somebody did want to learn from you or something that you wanted to share with someone, what would you share with them?
Well, that's kind of what my book is.
Yeah.
The book that I wrote is in three parts. The first part is like a memoir. It's my life in relation to this idea.
Hmm.
The second part is the idea and the science that supports it. Because I didn't realize how much science supported this idea when I came across it. When I started researching for the book, that's when I discovered it. The third part is the important part. That's what I refer to as the intangible toolbox. Now,
Hmm.
in that part, it has the Stanislavski system, all 7 questions, plus Stanislavski's magic if exercise, the 3 Meisner technique exercises, the repetitions, 10 Uta Hagen exercises, and also improv exercises. The third part has them all, breaks them down how we use them as actors. Alongside with that, it's like how you could use them in life alongside with exercises. So there's actionable stuff in the whole third part. Every exercise has an exercise for it for you to use it in life. So it allows you to see how they work. That's why I wanted them side by side. So if someone ever gets, because these aren't all of them, this is just 3 of the techniques.
Hmm.
So if someone gets a different book, they can see how the parallels look. So if they get an acting book, they can say, oh, well, if this is what it looks like acting, now I have an idea what it looks like in life.
Yeah.
So that's the reason I paired them that way.
Okay, cool. So definitely I will include your book link in the show notes. And so
Thank you.
is there anything else that you feel like is important that people should hear? Because there's so much leadership and insight, and I don't know, there's like so many things, right, that people can learn from you. And I totally respect everything that you have said and your experience and just a cool perspective that you just brought to me. I See, I love doing podcasting because I get to learn from people like you and listen to stories like this, and I get it firsthand, which is fun for me. So I so appreciate you being here.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate you having me. But yeah, after what you were saying, I guess it's just understanding that this stuff will transform your life, because if you consider right now, corporations,
Mm-hmm.
politicians, think tanks, the people who are really running things are spending billions upon billions of dollars to understand how the public thinks, how they
Mm-hmm.
behave, how they act, so they can influence how we buy, how we vote, so they can get us to do what they want. If we take the time to learn this literacy, all of that is negated. It's for nothing, because the only reason they can do that is because we don't know ourselves that well. People would be shocked how little they know themselves. If you take the time to answer these questions, to fill yourself out, because I like to say it like this too. It's like, if you look at how actors work, the script is the coloring book. I am the box of crayons. So that's how you have to look at life. Whatever you do in life, that's your script. You're the box of crayons. You can color everything else in any way you want. You know, nothing says you have to use certain colors that society says. Pick the ones that sing to your heart. And then that will make your life more vibrant and make you more happy. It'll make me feel more fulfilled, because you're leaving a mark. You're not doing what everyone else does. You know, you're becoming unique, authentic. And that's the goal, because these techniques will bring out your authenticity, because you're self-actualizing. You're finding out who you are in multiple different ways. Like I said, nobody has ever been able to call me inauthentic. You know, it doesn't matter where I've gone, who I've talked to. It's because I know myself.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And if people wanted to find you, where can they find you?
There's a couple different places. I'm a Gen Xer. About 50 years
Mm-hmm.
old now. Um, I just started. What do you call it? Social media. I don't know it
Social
that
media?
well. I'm learning, but I have YouTube, Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And
Okay.
I'm under Soy Candy, SoiCandie. You can find me there. I post a lot of, like, I started June of last year, and I've over 300 videos I've posted. So it's like I've been pretty regular on there.
Yeah.
And again, it's talking about this idea, showing my miniature work, stuff like that, just projects I'm working on. Also, you can check out my website. That's where I'm posting these podcasts and videos and stuff like that. It's www.tbcenterprises.com. That's TBC like Tango Bravo Charlie. And you can also check out Amazon.com and look up the book. I'm
Of
terrible.
course, you gotta share the book.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Uh,
a cool cover.
Thank you. Thank
All
you.
your best selves.
Hmm. You can find it on Amazon. It's in Kindle version and in paperback right now.
Perfect.
And if you do get it, anyone, I'd greatly appreciate reviews. They're very important.
For sure. I'm gonna order it and read it and
You
send you
like
a
it?
review.
Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you so much for being here. This was so insightful, so just enlightening, and I love what you just said about the crayons. I'm just gonna color my life. That's all I'm
Yeah.
gonna say now. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Carla.
All right, so that's it for this episode. Here are a couple things I took from this powerful conversation with Jim. Number one big reminder was that emotional intelligence isn't just something you're born with. It's something you build. And when you really know yourself, when you've done the work to ask the right questions, no one can shake the foundation. The second thing was the way that Jim described emotions as flavored energy. That was one of my favorite things from that, actually. That stuck with me because it reminds us that we get to choose how we show up, what flavor we give off. And that's powerful when it comes to presence, leadership, and even healing. So remember, the Power Summit with Women Without Limits movement is happening September 27th here in Austin, Texas. And in November, we're launching the very first cohort of the hypnosis certification training. So I'll be sharing more about all of that. So keep listening because it helps me a lot too. Okay. And so if this episode sparked something for you, share it with someone who would love it. Remember to leave a review, rate it, and subscribe to it. And if you're listening or watching on YouTube, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And so with that being said, thank you for listening to this episode up to this point. I am Carla Rodriguez. This is MetaFit MetaMind Podcast, where we're having conversations that we would have never had. Until next time.